let's talk about Balloon Gate. All right. Because this is a story that's gone viral. It was viral for several days. The United States, I believe it was yesterday, shot down off the coast of South Carolina the so called Chinese spy balloon. And this is a piece of Cold War, because I don't even want to say new at this point, because this is just straight up Cold War propaganda. Something just so astoundingly, unbelievably idiotic. I mean, just idiotic. The idea of China spying on the U.S. with a hot air balloon that everybody can see, with technology that is incredibly archaic when it comes to intelligence standards, even not even in its technological advancement, but in its functionality. You would never use something like that to spy on another country. It's why the United States taps all your phones. They don't want to they don't want to send a balloon over your city. They're most likely going to send a drone, because drones can be hidden in the sky. They can be hidden all across the geographic terrain. So the fact that this is even a story is incredible. But I mean, China's pissed off right now, and they should be, because they just reestablished a lot of ties with the United States after the Nancy Pelosi debacle back in August 2022. The United States and China had cut off a lot of communication channels after that, on a whole lot of different issues related to defense and environmental protection and anti-drug coordination, all of that, and just had reestablished those channels. There was a G20 summit with the Xi-Biden conversation, and there was a reestablishment of those channels. But now you have the United States' military shooting down what is no doubt a Chinese unmanned civilian aircraft that has solely meteorological purposes. So something that's happened so many times before, now that we're finding out, it's happened many times before. It happened under Trump. This is just what happens to these devices and these aircrafts. But what do you make of all this, Garland? Because we know that the United States is on the war footing with China. We had the Air Force General Minahan a leaked memo saying prepare for China, 2 years, 2025. Let's hit him in the head, right? Let's shoot him in the head. The Air Force has got to get ready. United States sanctions on China are escalating. Biden just slapped new ones on Huawei. We know that the military industrial complex has huge interest all across the Asia Pacific. The Philippines just agreed to allow the United States to service four of its own bases, meaning that its military personnel are going to staff and occupy the Philippines to an even further degree. But this just feels absolutely ridiculous. What's your take on the Balloon Gate drama?
I think for China, it's the best thing that could possibly happen to them, because if you're dealing with idiots, you need to know it. You really need to know when you're dealing with idiots, and for them to look at it, they've got to be like, we're not dealing with reasonable people. I'm glad we found it out so we can now act accordingly. One of the things that I see here is that it is a reminder to people like me that be glad you're not in either one of these parties, because let's face it, this is I'm going to guess it's Canvas. This is a Canvas version of the Steele dossier. That's what it is. This is the Steele dossier for the blue no matter who people. If you read it, it was preposterous. It was absurd. It was laughable. But they believed it, not because they even knew what was it. A lot of people said the Steele dossier is true. And if you ask them, they couldn't tell you one word that was in it. But they knew they hated Trump. And the Steele dossier in their mind was something that proved that Trump was the bad guy. So that was good enough. The Steele dossier is good. It's right. What's in it? I don't know. But whatever it is, it proves that Trump's bad. Now we go, and I call them brainwash cult. We go from the blue brainwash cult to the red brainwash cult. They don't care if this balloon is Chinese, if it's a weather balloon. Here's what they know. I hate China. It doesn't have to be a balloon. There could be no balloon there. They could just say, show them a picture of a balloon. And you know what? They could come up tomorrow and say, my bad. It wasn't a balloon after all. It was just a cloud that we thought was a balloon. But we still got to act on China, because next time it could be a balloon. And they go, that's right, we hate China. Next time it could be a balloon. It doesn't matter to these people. And these were some of the people that were laughing at the Democrats. Oh, do you believe the stuff they believe about Russia? How absurd are that they could believe these preposterous fallacies about Russia. And as soon as a stinking weather balloon comes along, now for some reason, the Chinese are watching Billings, Montana, of all places. And then they started telling people like Billings, Montana, yeah, there's silos, missile silos there. And we're like they didn't already know they were there. They've got 600 spy satellites, but for some reason they want to go back to the 1700s and use balloons. Because balloons are so stealthy. Who'd ever figure out that they were there? And let me add this. We got satellites. We got NORAD. We got radar of all kinds. We saw that balloon when it took off. We followed that balloon all the way across the Pacific, all the way across Alaska and Canada. We knew what it was doing. So the idea that suddenly we realized there was a balloon there, no, we waited till the balloon was where we wanted it to be. And then we said, oh my God, there's a Chinese balloon. And we just see that the red brainwashed cult is yet still just one of two brainwashed cults.
Yeah. I mean, the United States has a lot of trouble spying on China, and they've made that pretty clear inside of China. But when it comes to the region, when it comes to something like a balloon in the air getting taken by winds, for example, there is no doubt that that balloon was surrounded, followed, and tracked by the numerous all across. You hear it if you follow anything related to Taiwan and the Western corporate media when it comes to all of the reports of China being aggressive, they will tell you, the U.S. will tell you that it's their so-called surveillance planes, their surveillance aircraft flying over the Taiwan Straits that are detecting Chinese activity, whether it's in the sea or in the air. They will tell you this. And back in, 2001, 2002, during the Bush era, there was an accident because a Chinese plane and a U.S. plane knocked into each other. And the China, of course, was like, what the hell are you doing in our airspace? Why are you here? And the United States, of course, said, well, because we can. And so there's no doubt that this was tracked and surveilled. This was all political theater to do exactly what you said, Garland, which is having this attended effect of, okay, the U.S. political class, the neocons, both parties, these cults of the corporate class, the ruling class, the neocons, the military industrial complex, they hate China and they want everyone else to hate China. So it's like when they, this is the anniversary of Colin Powell's WMD debacle. It's like when the Western media, the collective West media, says something wrong, they publish a story, something incorrect, a lie, and then after basically public opinion around the world says that was a lie, then they'll put a note at the end of the article, usually not even retracting what they originally published, just a little note at the end. After all of the effects, the propaganda has spread, the hysteria has spread, there's just a little note at the end. So this feels just like that, where there'll be a little note, oh yeah, maybe that was a weather balloon. Oops, we maybe it wasn't correct what we said. But days and days of just hysteria over China spying on us. And still now you have both the red cult, the blue cult, both saying, you had Elon Omar. When I saw this on Twitter, Elon Omar saying, they got it. I was just, you're cheering this on? The squad, she's complaining about getting off of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I believe it is. In now she's cheering. Like, do I want her on that committee if she is cheering on the fact that the U.S. military is so rabidly lusting for war with China that it's willing to shoot down a damn balloon in the sky? Because in China saying this, it's not about the intelligence, not about the spying. They actually want to look at the technology. That's what China is saying now. China is saying, oh, yeah, you're doing something really rash because you want to pump your chest, but you also just want to steal our stuff, which is something that we don't hear often. We all usually hear China stealing our tech, but now China is saying, do you just really want to steal our tech that badly? Anyway, your remarks, your response.
Well, I mean, I think that in the broader context of everything that's going on right now, I do tend to believe that, and I'm not one to, a lot of people, everything that happens, they say that's a distraction. The
Mm.
type, there's something, anything that happens, they just say it's distracting us from something else. And sometimes effectively it is, but that may not necessarily be the intent. Now, I think there is a certain level of intent
Oh yeah.
because the Ukraine project is collapsing in the worst kind of way. In fact, it's worse than collapsing, it's spiraling downward out of control. The Russians have the initiative economically, diplomatically, militarily. The coalition, the U.S. empire, the U.S. has been exposed as a malicious empire towards their internal vassals. They're blowing up their pipelines. The people they're freaking out in Europe. They're in the streets. They're striking, things of that nature. So there's so much instability in the US empire right now, and they're losing. I think they're looking for some way to redirect people's attention from the instability that's coming from all of the problems that they're having. And one of the ways is to find something, anything, a balloon, good enough. Oh, everybody stare at the balloon, so that we can look away from the instability that's happening
Yeah.
regarding, because now, some major towns are falling. In the last few weeks, basically the Ukrainian government has been taken apart. They're taking it apart. People at the highest levels are all resigning, quitting, etc., and being replaced by new puppets. And if they even have if the neocons have a plan for Ukraine, I'd like to know what it is. But so I do think this is somewhat a way to distract and to redirect people's attention from this mess that they've created, and they don't know. I don't think they just don't know what to do.
Oh, I totally agree with that, because I also share the opinion that there are too many out there commentators, very good people, friends, who do play up this is a distraction, right? What's in the media, distraction. What the collective West is saying is a distraction. Propaganda, distraction, distraction, distraction. And oftentimes you could say yes, but is that the primary issue, or is that the principal contradiction that we need to be looking at? Or is there a real agenda that's right in front of our face, real interests playing out, real class interests, real political interests playing out right in front of our noses, and it's just that we're not necessarily getting it, or thinking the correct way, or thinking how this is all coming about. But here, this is no doubt this is 100% a psyop, a psychological operation. There's no doubt about it, because of everything you said. And then in the United States is looking at the landscape, the ruling elite, those who actually pull the strings in places like the Pentagon and in Langley and elsewhere. They look at the landscape and they're saying, we are not going to get what we want, which is we need a W. They all watch sports. I'm sure they're all betting and doing all that stuff with sports, just like a lot of us lay people do. But they're looking and they're saying, "Wow, there's no victories here. We can't even cripple countries like the DPRK and Iran to the point where they collapse, because anything that the United States does around the world, the collective West does around the world, they want the final result. They don't just want, they say it in their strategy, oh, we don't want regime change, but we want, national security strategy. They say we just want to contain, we just want group. No, 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 no. They want the whole enchilada. They don't want just a piece of the pie. They want the whole pie. They want Russia to fall. They want China to fall. They want Iran, the DPRK. They want every, Zimbabwe, any country choosing a sovereign path with a strong central government, as you said, with the capacity to assert some semblance of sovereignty, they want gone. And so, with that said, they look at the landscape and say, we're not getting anywhere with that. It's not like all countries are thriving here, but we're not going to get that victory that we once thought was inevitable, especially after the fall of the Soviet Union. So they look at that and they say, well, how do we get people's attention away from that? How do we look strong? How do we get people to believe that we're doing not just the right thing, but equating the right thing with imperial hubris, bullyism, hegemony, empire? How do we make that? How do we refurbish that public relations stunt? Because it's looking pretty bad right now after almost a year of being stuck in Ukraine without any prospect for victory. And now it's looking like the only prospect that's going to come about, the only solution that will come about out of that whole debacle is a Russian victory.
Yeah, and you know what we see, you know, is the term you used is important, and that is contradictions, because the Ukraine conflict and the U.S.'s response have made, you know, have exposed glaring contradictions, and that is, I mean, everything from arguing that we're standing for democracy or we're standing for the good guys, and people have asked questions about, well, wait a minute, the people in Ukraine really aren't the good guys. Oh, we stand for the marginalized communities. And then they're like, well, when this thing started, we watched you happy to relocate people who were, you know, white Europeans, but people from areas of the globe that were darker or Muslim, et cetera, you know, have been rejected and thrown aside. So a number of contradictions were exposed. And additionally, and I guess this isn't the same thing, but it just popped in my mind. The balloon gate also reminds me of what's going on with Russia in that tactics without a strategy. Okay, a balloon drifts over. And so here's an opportunity to throw a punch at China. How is that part of a bigger strategy? You know what I mean? It's not like, okay, first we'll do the balloon gate and then we'll move on to this, this, and this. No, it's just like there's a balloon. Oh, it's Chinese. What do you think, guys? Oh, let's just say something bad about China. Okay, yeah, great idea. We'll say something bad about China. What? I don't know anything. They're trying to kill us with balloons, right? So they see this friggin' balloon and they make up some goofball story about a weather balloon threatening the U.S. And then they shoot the balloon down and miss it like or something at first or something. I mean, but they take this balloon out, right? A balloon. They attack a balloon. And now I don't think they really know where to go because they never had a plan. So what you see with these people is they don't have a carefully prepared strategy and they're going through steps to achieve their goal. But Russia and China, they do have a careful strategy and they are working to achieve a greater and longer term goal diplomatically, economically, etc. So you got people who are just swinging at the wind. A balloon flies by and they grab at the balloon like a kid patting at the balloon. Oh, there's something. We can say something mean about China with no greater strategy to you know that's part of just enough. So it's like, what next? What is next going to be? Is you know, some driftwood going to float up on a beach in Washington State with something from China, and then they're going to say they attacked us with driftwood? You know, it's absurd. It's preposterous. They have no plans. And if this is their plan, if their plan is balloons, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think that's a real strong plan. Balloons, the attack of the balloons. That ain't exactly. I'm surprised that some of the Democrats aren't there telling us this is the equivalent of Pearl Harbor. Remember the Russian bots that were actually made by the companies that they were paying were attacked with Pearl Harbor. So I'm surprised they're not, the Republicans aren't comparing the, you know, they're going to have like a day, or, you know, that we should make a national holiday or some kind of a memorial, like a bust of Zelensky and then like a statue of a balloon to remember the day that the United States was attacked by a Chinese balloon. Put those side by side on the Capitol. That's my suggestion. Zelensky and a balloon.
Yeah. Zelensky painted on a balloon.
I never thought about that.